Hello, my name is Vincent and you're listening to Clairvoyance. The Ouija board and Bloody Mary are examples of paranormal games that people usually play with their friends when they want to spook each other or use it to prank someone. There are many paranormal games out there that say it's a way to connect to the other side of reality. One thing that all these games have in common for sure, whether they are real or not, it starts off with some kind of ritual. Take the game Bloody Mary, for example. There are many versions of it, but basically you say Bloody Mary 3 times to your bathroom mirror and Bloody Mary is supposed to appear. Some say that these rituals are true and can be very dangerous, while others are skeptical and view it as nothing more than a party trick. Red Door, Yellow Door, also known as Doors to the Mind, is another example of supernatural games played between friends. What's different about this game is that it doesn't deal with the physical world and connecting to spirits. Instead, it's a battle being done inside someone's mind. The subconscious mind is very powerful and complicated and holds secrets about yourself that you tucked away and have forgotten about. Red Door, Yellow Door is supposed to take you into a trance so that your subconscious mind can form into something that you can see. And in this game, walking through a door is like walking into another level of your subconscious. Now the battle being played here is between the player and the player's deepest and darkest fears. The goal of the game is to survive because apparently if you die in a trance, you die in real life. For this week's episode, I interviewed a 21-year-old girl named Jessie Morgan who was naive enough to think the game was innocent because it didn't deal with any ghosts. She dared herself to face it head-on without looking at the proper precautions, and because of that, she was left with an aftermath and a scar that changed her life. I've been in here since March 1st, 2018. I've been counting days. If you were here 588 days ago, you would have been here for my 1-year anniversary. Okay, so here's the full story. My roommates and I just came back into town 1 week before the winter semester started. There was me, Olive McBride, Hazel Moody, and Jessie Melroy, but everyone calls her Mel. Anyways, it was around the third or fourth night there, and the four of us alongside Hazel and Mel's boyfriend came home late, hella baked from a party. And we were all just talking about what happened that night and laughed about all the guys that Olive made out with. Remember, it's the middle of winter, and where we live, winter gets pretty intense sometimes. It's also worth noting that a blackout isn't much of a surprise anymore either. But to 6 high people, a blackout can be a very terrifying thing. And it was just our luck that a blackout happened before we started watching a movie. We continued talking, hoping the power would come back on soon so that we can watch the movie, and we waited for a better part of an hour before someone brought up the idea of heading to bed. Olive stood up from the couch and said, "Alright, well, it's almost 3 a.m. and there's nothing left to do. I think I'm just gonna head to bed." Then I stood up and said, maybe there is something to do. Maybe we should play a game. And this seemed to intrigue everyone. They all knew me enough to know I wasn't talking about some stupid school kid game, but more of like a creepy game. So Olive turned around and waited to hear what I had in mind. Well, there's the obvious Ouija board game we can do. It's nearly 3 o'clock, so it'd be pretty perfect. Hazel, the jumpiest out of all of us, shook her head. No, it's 3 o'clock, which means a witching hour. I'm not down to deal with ghosts right now. I took the flashlight and shined it under my face. How about we do Red Door, Yellow Door? Everyone was curious about this. Brent, Mel's boyfriend, stammered, "What is that?" I reached for my phone and searched it up. Well, to be honest with you guys, I don't actually know what it is. I just saw it in a video. I'm looking up the rules right now. Mel moved to the edge of the couch and grabbed my wrist. "Wait, don't look at the rules. Let's just find out how to do it and see what happens." "Sounds good to me," I agreed. "Alright, well, who's first then?" No one stood up. I realized that everyone was too nervous to want to go first. So I explained to them what the game is and what it's supposed to do. I definitely sugarcoated it a little bit, but I wanted them to get excited about it, just not too scared. Then I got to the part that explains how to do the ritual to start the game. "Alright, Olive, lie down here." I pointed at her and tapped on the ground where I wanted her to lie down. I sat crisscrossed and placed her head on my legs. I brought her arms straight up and read the instructions out loud. It says here the player must close their eyes while the guide rubs their temples. Everyone in the room except the player must chant Red Door, Yellow Door, any other color door. And the player must try to imagine being in a hallway full of doors. Once they actually see the doors, the player will have to put their hands down to indicate the game has started. Olive nodded her head and I started the chant and everyone else followed. We all sat there for about a minute until finally her arms fell down. I guided her and asked her questions about where she was going, what she was seeing, what doors were ahead of her. I tried to get every bit of detail out of her. But to put it all together, she said she was walking down a long, bright hallway, and then she finally chose a door and opened it. Inside the room looked like an interrogation room that you would see in a police station. There was another door on the other side of the room. When she walked through it, she saw a room full of butterflies, and it just overwhelmed her, and then she just woke up. Mel stood up and volunteered to go next. Instead of starting in a hallway, she started in a dark dining room, only lit up by a room nearby. She slowly walked towards the room and started noticing someone inside. She said she recognized this person, she just couldn't put her finger on it. Inside this room was a burning car, which was the source of the light. She walked around the car, still facing the man, and backed out of the room into another one. The next room looked like a lobby to a hotel. She looked around and tried to find another door, but there weren't any in sight, so then I woke her up. I tried getting one of the boys to play, but they were just not having it and just enjoyed watching us spook each other out. Hazel didn't want to at first and she was very hesitant, but we finally convinced her. She started in a dark hallway. At the end of the hallway were 2 doors, a gray one and a dark navy blue one. I asked her which one she was more attracted to and that she should walk through that one. She grabbed the handle of the blue door and walked inside. It was a room full of plants, almost like a greenhouse. The plants were organized so that there was a clear path for her to walk around, however, she couldn't see the end of it. As she was looking for the next door, she saw that someone was running through the plants with her. She couldn't see who it was, but she swore up and down she saw someone else there. She started walking faster and faster, and every few steps, she started noticing the bushes around her were moving like someone was right beside her. When she finally found a wall, she stuck to it and searched for a door. As she was trying to find one, I looked down and noticed that a tear ran down her eye. Then suddenly she sat up and said, "That game is pretty messed up. I don't like it." Olive stood back up and seemed excited. "Okay, Jess, it's your turn. I can be your guide." And here's how my experience went in dialogue. Red door, yellow door, any other color door. Red door, yellow door, any other color door. Red door, yellow door, any other color door. Okay, what do you see? I'm in this yellowish office-looking room. It's kind of creepy. Do you see a door? Yeah, there's like 6 of them, actually. Okay, choose one. Alright, I'll choose the purple one. Are you inside the new room? Yeah, it's like a planetarium in here. Really dark, though. What else do you see? A man cleaning a wall, I think. That, or he's waving at me. Okay, keep looking around. You're supposed to find something bright. Whoa, what the hell? It's getting darker in here. The stars are going out. Okay. Look for another door then. Oh, there's a door where the man was just standing. He's not there anymore. Do you see him? No, he's gone completely. I'm going through the door now. Okay, what's in there? It's an all-glass room at the top of a skyscraper or something. Anything else? Yeah, there's a grandfather clock at the corner of the room. What else do you... What the... There's another clock where the door just was. It's just 2 clocks, nothing else? There's also an old lady by the first clock. She's cleaning the window or something too. Do you see another door anywhere? Yeah, I do, but I have to walk past the lady and down some stairs. Alright, go for it. Yeah, I'm doing it right now. Damn, she's hella creepy. The door's black and the frame's red. Are you inside yet? No, not yet. I'm just kind of nervous. Okay, you want to wake up then? No, not yet. One more door and then I'm done. Alright, just tell me what's inside when you get in there. Oh, okay, I'm in here now. This is really weird. What do you see? What is it? I'm in a cement room, and it's empty other than a wooden table and a naked light bulb hanging from the ceiling. And what? And the man from the planetarium is here too. He's doing the same motion as before, but he's definitely not a janitor. Well, what makes you say that? He's wearing a suit, and he's holding a briefcase. And he's waving at you? Well, it sure seems like it. Okay, wave back at him. That makes sense, I guess. What the hell? What happened now? I just got the chills. Do I have goosebumps right now? Yeah. Why? I mean, he's just smiling at me. It's kind of freaking me out. Okay, this is creepy. I'm gonna wake you up now, okay? Wait, no. Not yet. He stuck his arm out. I think he wants to shake hands. Jess, no. I'm curious. I'm already walking towards him. Okay, once you shake his hand, I'm waking you up, okay? Sure, deal. The room's getting darker the closer I get. What do you mean? I'm slowly walking toward him, but each step I take, the light bulb gets dimmer and dimmer. Okay, are you sure you want to do this? I mean, I'm already just a few steps away. He looks very old. Okay, I'm reaching my hand out now. Hello? Olive? He disappeared. You can wake me up now. No one answered. I found myself back in the glass room with the 2 clocks. No lady this time. Hello? It felt like I was yelling. I closed my eyes shut and opened them again, hoping I would have woken up, but I was still there. Then I had this awful feeling that I was stuck in a trance. Even if I was in a trance, I felt like they could still hear me. So I said, "Guys, I know you can hear me, okay? Just shake me really hard or something." But the longer I was in that room for, the more I was realizing that I'm not just seeing things anymore. I can feel stuff. Like walking around the room felt like I was genuinely walking. Unlike before, I would just tell myself to move closer to something, and I would. But now, I actually have to walk. One of two things is happening here. Either I fell asleep and this is a very vivid dream, or I'm really stuck in a trance. But if I fell asleep, my friends would have woken me up by now. I sat in the middle of the room and started having a breakdown. I was crying my eyes out for what felt like 10 minutes. And then I heard a laugh. I turned my head to the door that led me to the man in the suit, and I saw a head of a girl hide back into the room. I slowly stood up and tiptoed my way there. The door was ajar, and there was a yellow light coming from the other side. I peeked through and noticed I was in this room before. I stepped in, and I was back in that yellowish office room. There were once 6 doors there, but this time there's only 2. The one I came from and the one down the hall. This office space had many other empty rooms that you could just walk into. However, I was more curious about the girl I saw earlier. I walked around, yelling, "Hello? Anyone there?" But all I could hear was the buzzing the LED office lights were making. I looked around for another 5 or 10 minutes until I finally decided that I was probably just seeing things. As I was walking toward the next door, I saw the girl again. This time, I caught her walking through the doorway into the next room. "Stop!" I yelled, waving my hand as I tried to catch up to her. I swung the door open to figure out where she was leading me, and I was back in a familiar room, the planetarium. Except this time, it resembled a planetarium I worked at the summer before. Memories started flooding my mind, like my horrible boss, my pervert coworkers. It was not a pretty gig. As I walked around, I started remembering why I took this job and why I didn't quit. You see, my parents and I never got along because they never got along. And I took this job to get away from home. My dad was just a horrible drunk, and my mom was a victim of his abuse. And I came home from work one night and saw my dad beating my mom to a bloody pulp. She never woke up from it, and I never saw my dad again. Tears started flushing down my face as I sat down on one of the seats and looked up at the stars. Like last time, the stars started dying out, and the darker and darker it got in there, the more eerie it felt being in there. I heard the laughing again. It wasn't in the distance this time. It sounded a lot closer. I turned around, and the old lady from the glass room was sitting right behind me, her wrinkled fingers reaching out to me, trying to touch my forehead or something. I tried whacking her hand away, but it went right through her, like she was an illusion or something. I stumbled out of my chair and backed up to the closest wall. I looked up to see how many stars were still lit up. Just a few. I looked back down, and the lady disappeared. That was an indication for me to get the hell out of there, quick. The door I came from was no longer there, and the room was too dark to see any other walls. I thought about the planetarium I worked at and mapped it out in my head. I thought to myself, if I remember correctly, there should be an employees-only door behind the stage. I made my way to the stage using the wall as a guide. About 3 minutes of searching, I finally found a doorknob and twisted it open. And the pattern continued. I was back in the glass room. It was way more confined there because of the amount of clocks. There were clocks everywhere. I could barely see outside because the clocks just covered the window. It was even harder to walk around in the room. There were standing clocks there too. And the worst part about it, every single clock in the room was in sync, to the very second. They all ticked at the same time. It was driving me crazy, and I needed to get out of there as soon as possible. But there wasn't a single door in sight. The door behind me was replaced by a clock. There weren't any stairs that led to the next room like last time. I was stuck in a room full of clocks that ticked at the same time. It was driving me crazy, and I needed to get out of there as soon as possible. But there wasn't a single door in sight. The door behind me was replaced by a clock. There weren't any stairs that led to the next room like last time. I was stuck in a room full of clocks that ticked at the same time. It was driving me crazy. It felt like I was in a loop. My thoughts were going in circles, thinking about the same thing I thought about just a few seconds ago. I stood in the middle of the room looking around, trying to figure out my next move, but I couldn't think of anything. My thoughts were being replaced by the ticking of the clocks. It was driving me crazy. I curled up on the floor, pulling my hair and yelling, "Make it stop." I closed my eyes and covered my ears, but it did nothing. The ticking was playing in my head. Through all that noise, I heard the lady laughing again. I opened my eyes and instantly felt disoriented. Standing up was a difficult task too, because it felt like I had vertigo. I felt someone grab my hand and pull me somewhere. I couldn't see who it was. It was like I was drugged or something. I couldn't open my eyes long enough to make sense of what was happening. Suddenly, I slammed into a wall and my hand brushed against a door handle. I looked up, pulled the handle down, and fell into the next room. The ticking immediately stopped, but the vertigo continued, however, a lot less. I was able to find the strength to stand up to observe my environment. It was a cement room, but a lot bigger this time. So big that the light from the light bulb couldn't reach the four walls of the room. It was almost as if there weren't any walls at all. I walked forward and noticed that the man in the suit was there again. He stood under the light bulb, which looked about 50 yards away, looking down at some people. There were 3 girls and 2 boys, all lying down around him, except the one girl. It looked like she was struggling to hold herself up, and it looked like she was begging to make him stop. The man turned his head, looked at her, and stabbed her through her stomach. I gasped and turned around to get out of there, but there was nothing behind me, not even a wall. The man dropped the knife and walked towards me. I turned around and tried to run away, but it felt like one of those dreams where running was impossible. Even though he was 50 yards away, in a matter of seconds, he was right behind me. He grabbed my shoulders, spun me around, and put his old, bloody hand on my forehead. His hand was cold, and it felt like he was sucking the life out of me. My eyes fluttered, and then I was back, standing in my apartment room. There was a very, very brief moment of relief, like waking up from a nightmare. But then I looked down at my hands. They were covered in blood. I started trembling and feared what I would see when I turned around. My friends were in the same position I saw the people in my trance, the people that the man in the suit stood over. I walked over, tears running down my face. They were all dead, beaten to a pulp, stabbed multiple times. I sat on the couch. I did nothing, just looking straight, not knowing what to do. I sat there for about 4 hours, waiting for the sunrise before deciding to call the police. I wasn't even thinking about anything during that time. I remember my mind being completely blank. The police arrived and I told them everything that happened. I knew I sounded crazy, but it was the truth. My lawyer told me it would be best if I pleaded not guilty by reason of insanity, and I agreed, because I knew what it sounded like. I've been in the psych ward since March 1st, 2018, and I don't think I'm getting out anytime soon. Even if my sentence was over, I don't think I'd be able to leave this place and live a normal life. If you haven't noticed, I don't even have a clock in this room. It's because to this day, even when I see a clock, I hear the ticking in my head. Interviewing Jessie Morgan was very interesting because she seemed perfectly sane, but anytime she even said the word clock, it's like she had Tourette's and had a tic. Anyways, paranormal games can be a very fun way to pass time and spook yourself and your friends. However, if done incorrectly or without the right precautions, it can be very dangerous and can lead to unpleasant endings. That's all for this week's episode. Please follow or subscribe and share this podcast with your friends and family, and I'll see you guys next week. Thank you for listening.